Frustrated by the high failure rates in 8th grade algebra, San Francisco Unified decided to delay algebra till 9th grade and place low, high, and average achievers in the same class.
They're getting rid of some of the objective standards with regard to math because math is, and they want to get rid of the idea that there are naturally gifted children.
The goal was to improve achievement for Black and Hispanic kids, preparing more for advanced math. That didn't happen. What ended up happening was that rich parents just paid for private tutors. Test data from 2015 to 2019 shows that the racial achievement gap widened. This is literally the racism of low expectations. Hello, my name is Chisom, and this is the first episode in what I would call Culture Shock. This is basically where I try to understand where culture is going. I've been deeply fascinated about cultural innovation. I'm in tech and I consistently talk about technological innovations, but I've been deeply fascinated by what the culture wants that it doesn't know yet. And in today's episode of Culture Shock, we're going to talk about the racism of low expectations. I want to start off by providing some context into my background. I attended a very prestigious school in Nigeria called Loyola Jesuit College. The reason why that experience is so important to me is because a lot of times when we look at the failure of a community, a country, or a society, we look at a lack of institutions. And Loyola was actually one of the institutions that worked in Nigeria. I don't know if it still works today, but it worked while I was there. And why that is very interesting is because what it does is highlight the failures of a lot of the ideologies we see being spread around.
The idea was that there was too much racial disparity in math performance in California, and so changed the standards, which, by the way, I can't think of anything more racist than that.
No,
that is so super racist. It's like, not enough black kids are scoring well on the test. That means that black kids, I guess, are too dumb to do well on these tests. Get rid of the tests.
That it is racially and culturally insensitive is a very bizarre accusation.
Yes, and it implies, I suppose, that sort of ethnic minority students need to have the bar lowered for them almost, doesn't it? And
when I attended Loyola in my first year, there was a boy in my school who ended up getting into Harvard. I knew that there was a place like Harvard where a lot of the greatest leaders in the world attended. I knew that place of the world was very far away. I knew there was America, and in America there was Harvard, and I was all the way in Nigeria here. Someone attending Harvard from my school meant that Harvard that was actually far closer than I initially thought it would be. Once he got in and I saw that so many other kids who ate in the same dining hall like me, had the same teachers as me, took the same classes as me, ended up getting into these elite institutions, it made those places seem smaller and more achievable. I knew that my school was very well resourced. I remember that when it was time for our exams, we would have hallways littered with SAT textbooks because we were just the kids who had access to those resources. I was one of the poor ones, but we were the kids who had access to those resources. But we were taught that we were the best school in the nation. We were the pride, we were the smart kids. That was our responsibility. We were excellent, we could achieve what we needed to achieve. Fast forward 5 years, and I see countless kids get into very good schools, get into the Caltechs, the MITs, the Stanfords, those places that are meant to be these elite private institutions, having Black Nigerian kids like me attend those institutions. And I'm just thinking to myself, okay, these are the smartest of us getting into these schools. It makes sense. I might not be the smartest one, but the smartest of us are getting into the Stanfords and the Yales. It makes sense. The world works. But we went through extreme academic rigor.
I think there's kind of two things that come from the education. I think there's the idea of pursuing excellence and being the very best you can be. And I think
known as the Society of Jesus, and they were a male order that was focused upon spreading education and the gospel to the places they went.
Jesuits are known for intense academic rigor. And while attending Loyola, we went through such intense academic rigor that even the most useless ones amongst us today, right? The ones of us that are like, okay, this person's clearly a criminal, clearly a mad person, at their worst, they can pull out the part of them that used to study very, very hard in Loyola, and they can still succeed based on that academic rigor that was put into them at such an early age. But one of the challenges with academic rigor in Loyola was that because it was so competitive and we were competing against each other, everybody who attended Loyola basically had grade deflation. So your grades will not represent adequately your academic score because we were under such intense academic pressures. And when we were applying to schools in America, when it was finally our time to apply to schools in America, I kept on thinking how wonderful the SAT was because the SAT allowed me to prove myself in a way that my grades just could not show. Loyola was so academically rigorous that I remember they used to talk about how we couldn't smuggle flashlights in because Nigeria didn't have consistent electricity, so we had to smuggle flashlights in, and they were like, you cannot do that, you need to go to sleep because we are competing like crazy. We are here competing against each other, and they do not want us staying up all night. So literally the guards would go around late at night and seize people's flashlights if they saw you staying up to study. That's how academically intense it was. The SAT is perfect because they actually allowed me to compete on a level playing field, a field that I just wasn't allotted by virtue of the school I went to, that I could show that I could do well academically. I have my SAT score. I took the SAT 3 times, and that's another thing I loved about the SAT, was that the SAT allowed me to take the exam as many times as possible and get the best score and send that over to a school. And my SAT score was not perfect, but it was a very good score. It was good enough. It wasn't Stanford, it wasn't Yale, but it was a good score. And this is somebody coming from Nigeria, coming from an entirely different system, still getting amongst the 90th percentile in her state when I took it in Indiana. What I hate is the subtle replacement of Black with unintelligent. What I hate is the subtle inference that at every point we must curve the scores of the Black kids in class to accommodate them. Like, there's this subtle disconnect that I am going through, which is that I am used to seeing Black kids achieve great things. I am used to seeing Black kids win awards, succeed, work very hard. And to still see all of that and see people say things like the SAT is racist and should be removed, the SAT that would have helped me, an international student, to do well in school, me, like a Black kid, do well in school. The subtle inference that for any exam that requires deep academic rigor, expect the Black kids to be the underperformers. It is a terrible suggestion that the moral thing to do is to remove a standardized exam that provides an equal playing field for people from vastly different backgrounds under the underpinnings that it serves for diversity or inclusion reasons. This mindset basically undermines the entire idea of a meritocracy. The fact is that this ideology calls into question Black people's position in institutions of higher education. It questions the validity of Black people's achievements. It firmly supports that Black excellence can only be relegated to sports and entertainment. These are the conversations that people in the Black upper middle class have in private but are too ashamed to have in public. We must reject an ideology that wants to make Black synonymous with lack of academic rigor or intellectual achievement. For there to be any kind of a functional Black society, there has to be a culture that values certain skills over others. We cannot export diversity to Africa. We do not have that privilege. If you've enjoyed this video, I have lots of other videos around this. Click here to watch some more, and I will see you all next time.